Some shocking new details about the Jesperi Kotkaniemi offer sheet were leaked today, saying he was humiliated when in Montreal, and a few more things you won't want to miss. Other than that, we have an update on Juraj Slafkovsky's health and that he went into concussion protocol after our game against Chicago. Finally, we have some questions about Samuel Montembeault and whether or not he might be able to be our number one goalie moving forward, so you won't want to miss this edition of Habs Digest. Hello, bonjour, ahoy, and welcome to today's news edition of Habs Digest. I'm your host, Josh Gosse, alongside my co-host, Jesse Poirier. Real quick reminder, before we get into the video, I know a lot of you guys are probably sick of seeing this, but we want to hit that 5,000 subscribers, and 73% of you guys watching our daily content aren't subscribed. If you find yourself watching these videos every single day, why not hit that button to know every time a new video is posted? Jesse, our first topic today, some big news talking about Jesperi Kotkaniemi and the offer sheet from Carolina. And wow, this kind of came out of nowhere. I mean, I've seen some videos online of people talking about Kotkaniemi, especially his very slow start with Carolina this season, early into that massive, 7 or 8 year extension they gave him. It's very interesting. He only has 4 points in, I think, 21 games now, really not playing well. But we had some news come out about some details surrounding the offer sheet. Let's take a look at this. The latest report out of Montreal will only dampen more this difficult season, as Jean-Charles Lajoie revealed the saga that took place when the Canadiens received the offer sheet for Kotkaniemi. Lajoie explains that the Habs were ready to match the offer and were only waiting on Kotkaniemi's agent to call them back, seeing if they matched the offer. The Canadiens wanted a long-term contract agreement as well to keep the Finnish player in Montreal. Kotkaniemi and his agent never returned the phone call. Without the agreement in place, the Canadiens could not match the offer, and Kotkaniemi was finally sent to Carolina. Jesse, as we know, this was a one-year, $6.1 million deal that Carolina offered to him, and the Habs wanted to keep Kotkaniemi long-term. It seems like Bergevin wanted an extension on top of that 1 year. What are your thoughts about these details and how Kotkaniemi's agent just decided not to call Montreal back?
It is quite shocking. It's quite rude. You think you'd want to keep professional sort of relationships all the same in the league, with various GMs. But I mean, we want players that want to be here, right? And while at the time it kind of stung, because Carolina was kind of putting some salt in the wounds, kind of a little bit of the retaliation for the Sebastian Aho, it seems like we're getting the final laugh on all of this, right? It's like kind of one of those situations, Josh, where it's like, your girlfriend breaks up with you, or maybe in this case, the agent of your girlfriend breaks up with you, and it seems like it's the end of the world. But then you only find out later, it's like, wait a second, like I'm way better off without her, and I have a way better girlfriend now in Kirby Doc or Slafkovsky. I don't feel like that. But, just I think everything worked out properly as it should in the end, So to be honest, I call me petty, but I love that we're getting the last laugh in all this.
I do too. Let me just say, if someone who claimed to be the agent of my girlfriend told me that we were breaking up, I'd be a little upset. But I digress. When we get into this this offer sheet here, I mean, Kotkaniemi, he had some great moments in Montreal, especially in the playoffs. I mean, I remember that Game 6 overtime winner against Toronto. Like, he was just such a good player with some great moments, and we saw that he had some skill, but later in the article, from that little snippet I showed you, it actually said that Kotkaniemi was, quote, he felt humiliated while in Montreal because he was getting healthy scratch, not only in the playoffs, but in the regular season. And his small stint in the AHL also left him feeling humiliated. So he was done with Montreal before this whole offer sheet fiasco went down. And if Montreal were to sign him to that 1 year deal and match it, he probably would have left anyway. But Jesse, I think you're bang on. That extension that Carolina signed him to, I mean, yes, he was a third overall pick. He showed a ton of promise. He's a big body, but never really filled into his frame that much. He tried to be physical. His scoring touch was okay, not great, but it seemed like his stats were almost going down year by year and just couldn't take that step to the next level. And right now, Carolina seems to be locked into a contract for a guy who's just not producing much. I mean, I'm not going to say he's a complete bust yet, but man, it's sure looking like it. I think Slafkovsky might be looking like a better bet already. What do you think?
I think so too. And the big difference for that is this the compete level? Like from Slafkovsky, we get that he's not lackadaisical about the game. Like he goes into the corners, he's trying to win battles, and that's a big problem with Kotkaniemi, right? When did we ever really see him win? Even though he's such a big guy, when is he going and scooping up the puck and winning board battles? Like this is really important to have a long career in the NHL. It's a really physical game. So I feel that just that compete level and the attitude that then goes on with that compete level to really that drive, that will to get the puck is really the big difference between those two players. And that's why I'm not so much worried about Slafkovsky because, skill is something that you can develop, but your will to play the game, to win the puck, those are a little bit intangibles that are harder to come by, which for me are bigger determinants of how good, a career is going to be for an NHL player. So I'm really up on Slafkovsky. I think he's going to have a great year. Where do you think that he shakes, comparing Slafkovsky and Kotkaniemi in your opinion?
Well, it's an interesting comparison. Like both Euro guys, both picked really early in the draft. Slafkovsky at 1, Kotkaniemi at 3. Is a big bodies who try to use their physicality, but maybe have an upside with a scoring touch. But I think you're bang on with that description. I think Slafkovsky's already showing his physical ability is better than Kotkaniemi. He's a thicker guy. He's stronger. He's more muscular. He's bigger in general, even if he's not that much taller. His shot is harder. Kotkaniemi may have him, as of right now, maybe has him on some, maybe puck moving skill and things like that. But honestly, I think with Slafkovsky's confidence, his ability to really bang with big bodies at the age he is already in the NHL, I think he projects to be a better Kotkaniemi no matter what. So I think it's great that Kotkaniemi didn't accept, or Montreal didn't match that offer sheet from Kotkaniemi, and I think it's a blessing in disguise that the agent never called us back because we have a lot more cap space now to sign some of our young guys who look way better. Speaking of Slafkovsky, we have this is a nice segue into our second segment saying that Juraj Slafkovsky says he is not injured. Now let me bring up this tweet from Tomáš Prokop, perhaps Slovakian, I'm not really sure, but I saw this on Twitter. It was sort of a translation after the game with the Blackhawks from a Juraj Slafkovsky interview. Quote, I was okay after the hit from Dickinson, but I had to go and do a concussion test. He hit me with an elbow to the head. Jesse, we kind of talked about this in the post-game recap yesterday, and we didn't really... in the moment, I wasn't sure the hit was super dirty, but after watching some replays, it kind of looked like targeting to me, especially sending Slafkovsky into concussion protocol. Yes, his head was down, but the point is that the elbow got up, and it got Slafkovsky right in the head. Just some quick thoughts on the injury. I mean, it seems like he's okay, which is awesome, but just some quick thoughts about that hit today, once we've had a few more angles to look at.
Yeah, no, I did look at it a couple times, even just our pod yesterday. And the more you look at it, the more you see that Dickinson's really leaning in, like he's getting ready for this all the way. I do believe it was premeditated. I do believe that it was a hit to the head. It's totally the type of hit that we want to see out of the game. I mean, if we're seeing Slafkovsky getting suspended for some dangerous hits, I mean, I think we have to do the same thing of protecting our young stars and giving at least a 1-game suspension, to Dickinson for that one. I definitely think he was in the wrong. He did Slafkovsky dirty, and he's going to have to keep his head up next time Jack Eye's on the ice when we play them next time.
That's for sure. They took him off when Jack Eye was on the ice in the last game. They didn't want any of his smoke, right? He's a scary presence. We mentioned that in the last spot. If you want to hear our discussion on just Jack Eye's impact, go to our last game recap against the Blackhawks. It was a good one. But that's pretty much all we have for Slafkovsky. But Jesse, I got this final little topic for you here, and I think it's an interesting discussion. After last night's performance, should Montembeault be our new number 1 goalie moving forward? Now, I'm not saying he should start every single game and Jake Allen in a pure backup role, but maybe more of a 1A, 1B situation where Monty gets a lot more games and maybe starts starting more games than Allen. Now, don't get me wrong. Allen, especially early in this season, has performed very well for Montreal. The advanced stats love him. He has saved us in a couple games. But his recent performances, coincidentally, after he's had a kid, are kind of suspicious. He's not looking great, while Montembeault is now 5-2-1. I'm going to bring up his stats real quick, actually. He's 5-2-1 with a 2.48 goals against average and a 924 save percentage. Jesse, he's been backstopping this team to wins all season long, and even last year when our defense was even worse than now. What are your thoughts on Monty, and do you think that he has a shot to maybe be our number 1 going forward?
Yeah, my thoughts on Monty is that he's really won me over. And Josh, I was not a fan of Montembeault. I know everybody had a rough year last year, and even kind of before that when he was kind of coming in. It's yeah, like, but he's really won me over because I found last year he looked so frazzled in the net. You could tell he was getting frustrated. It was a hard year. I definitely get that, but it's just it's not what you want to see from your goalie. Even if you're having a really tough game, you can't show it, right? Because the whole team relies on you. Arguably, in my opinion, the most important position on the ice. But we've just seen a completely new player. And, to be honest, it makes sense because goaltending is a type of position where it does take a couple years to really develop and get at your prime. And now he's at a point in his career, in his timeline, where he's now really achieving his prime. He's getting into his prime and he's playing great hockey. So I think we have to keep rolling him. I honestly think that we need to play him next game until he gives us a reason to take him out. We're in the business to win hockey games. And I really feel at this point in time that he's giving us the best opportunity. So we need to roll him. And to your point, Josh, like, yeah, I don't mean we're just playing Montembeault the whole time. I think Allen, we still have to value our goalies a lot. Even though it might look okay right now, with Price out, we need to understand that having two serviceable NHL goalies is a blessing that we really can't take for granted. But one of the most interesting storylines of even the rest of this whole year for us to monitor is, will Montembeault take that number one spot away from Jake Allen? I can't wait to see it.
I can't either. I mean, he's been dominant so far. I saw Marco D'Amico tweet earlier saying, like, I believe he put out an article asking, could Jake Allen maybe be traded if Montembeault continues his hot streak? We still have Caden Primo, who I'm sure in a pinch could be a decent backup goalie, though he hasn't progressed as much as we've wanted. But I'm sure, like, in a pinch, especially in this season, if we decide to move on from Jake Allen, send him to a contender who could use his backup services, maybe this could happen. I mean, Monty has been really so good so far. Allen's been playing great too, but like a younger guy, a guy from Quebec, someone who just be like, it'd be perfect for him to pan out, finally turn into an okay starting goalie for Montreal, for, I'm sure the team he cheered for growing up. And I think it'd be an awesome story, and I really can't wait to follow it more closely. But that'll do it for this news edition of Habs Digest. If you enjoyed the video, leave it a like, subscribe to the channel. We're going for 5,000 subs. I say it every video. It's like, you guys have been doing great. Every single video recently has been getting tons of support. You've been watching it for a long time. You've been subscribing. It's been great, and we love giving you content every single day. I'm your host, Josh Goss, for my co-host, Jesse Poirier. We'll catch you in the next video.